while your day is winding down. They're just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Welcome to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus Farrow. I'm joined by former Bristol County Sheriff Tom Hodgson. We're reacting to the historic event today. Some may say an unfortunate event. I think Sheriff Hodgson says an unfortunate event that former President Donald Trump has been formally arrested and indicted. The 34 counts of business records fraud have been released, as well as a statement of facts. So we're waiting for the president to speak. Do you have any idea? You've met the president. You know the president on a personal level. You've been to Mar-a-Lago. Former Sheriff Hodgson. Do you have any idea of what kind of speech he's going to deliver today?
I don't, obviously, but if I had to guess, I think he's probably going to speak about the injustice of what's going on here and the political motivations behind it. That I couldn't help but listen to what the district attorney said. He made a comment that he wasn't going to allow that. What happened was the president attempted to conceal to conceal 34 times. Misrepresenting the truth, a more serious crime, which he hasn't told us what that more serious crime is. But more to the point, he said, this really got me. We will not in New York normalize serious criminal behavior. I can't think of a DA who's more normalized serious criminal behavior than this DA Bragg. The 50% of the felony charges, people that have committed serious assaults, attempted murder, all these serious felonies against the people he's supposed to be representing in New York, he's either reduced or let go. And he's putting them right back out on the street. Don't talk to us about serious. What's first of all, we don't know what the serious crime he's talking about. Second of all, when you have a record like you do in New York, where people are getting thrown in front of subway trains, elderly women walking down the street and getting just sucker punched from behind, knocked to the ground after their purse is stolen, and these people are brought to court and let right back out again. You
don't think you're being a little hyperbolic?
Oh, not at all.
No.
Oh no, I watch it on the news regularly. But I presume you must know some of it, but it's been all over the news. New York is such a.
I'm not intimately familiar with the prosecutorial tendencies or philosophies of Alvin Bragg broadly beyond the scope of this case. I will say, there's I think been a lot of unfair criticism of, sort of a little bit more. Saying, okay, well, he's going to do this, but he'll let these people go, or he'll let this, he'll let these people go, but he's going to prosecute former President Trump. I think diversion for a lot of lower level offenses is actually a pretty sound and I think proven successful practice of prosecution. You've got people on lower level offenses where treatment is probably a better path to probably a better pathway to reducing the crime rate than hard prosecution in a lot of cases. I think you saw that play out in Boston.
Yeah. So are you referring to the medical treatment of the lady thrown in front of the subway train? Or are you talking about the treatment of the guy who threw her in front of the subway train? I mean, see, I hear your point, Marcus, but I guess what I would say is, I get that on perhaps maybe somebody that's got a drug related issue
right,
that
that's
needs.
What I'm talking about.
But I'm talking more. I was referring more when I was using the analogy of, or not analogy, but actually what's really going on. More of the felony charges around assaults, murder. You know, these people breaking into people's stores, smashing grabs, and all this stuff, and then just saying, okay, you know, we're going to let you. We're going to let you go. You don't have enough bail money. You don't have bail money, so we're going to let you right back on the street so you can do it again to somebody else. That's the part I'm talking about. If he was really pursuing that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. New York's a bail reform state as far as I know. So they don't know if they have I don't know if they have cash bail anymore for lower level offenses. I'd have to brush up a little bit more on their bail reform laws. My understanding is President Trump is able to be released on bail because it was a nonviolent offense.
Yes.
But with no cash bail rather. So I guess, you know, I'd be surprised if, you know, if someone who had thrown a woman in front of a subway car. I presume that woman's dead or at least seriously injured. I'd be surprised if that person was released on personal recognizance, let alone not prosecuted.
Well, it isn't just that it's not just that person. There are case after case after case. 50% of his felony cases, serious felony cases, were not pursued. They were never prosecuted, and people that have committed these serious felonies, he's letting them right back out on the street, and it's a big problem. You're probably familiar with San Francisco and what's happened there. New York is not so different than what's going on in San Francisco, and again, it's these DAs who share this philosophy about, hey, the criminals are really the victims, and the true victims, well, they're non-existent. And that not that I'm saying they are non-existent. I'm just saying with the approach that they take, it's the message that people are getting is, wait a minute, we don't matter. We're the victims, and the people that are committing these crimes against us. You're not sending any strong message to say, if you do this, there's a serious punishment for this. So they don't worry about it. They do it again and again. I mean, we had our current U.S. attorney in Boston, right? Well, she was saying basically, have you looked at her list of things that she said?
Yeah, the do not prosecute list.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with it. But the thing is, in Boston, the crime rate under her tenure as DA did drop precipitously. So, I mean, and not only that, they did a study because there was her predecessor, Dan Conley, was doing case diversion too, and they found that the people who had their cases diverted were substantially less likely to reoffend on lower level offenses. So I mean, I think Boston actually is a model for the type of prosecution you.
Well, I might disagree with you on the point about, you know, the crime rate was lower when she was in there, and it may very well have been lower because the cops realized, hey, listen, it doesn't make any sense for us. We know a lot of cops. I lock this person up. They're going right back on the street. I'm not wasting my time. So those numbers aren't really, in my view, necessarily accurately reflecting what's going on. But that's just like a feeling. It's a fact.
I think the cops might be discouraged, so they're underreporting the crimes.
Well, okay, but I would tell you from my experience, and I as a former cop and somebody who deals with a lot of police officers when I was a sheriff, police officers, you'd hear them talk about it, and deputy sheriff, same thing. It's like, this is ridiculous. You know, you go out there, not only do they let them go, but then they try to accuse you of doing something wrong, so these are real shifts that have hurt the American people and the people who we promise to protect, who are in some cases afraid to go out of their homes because they feel like the criminals have sort of been given free rein and nothing's going to happen. It's just sort of encouraged, as though, you know, you came from a tough background, you know, maybe we can help you change your ways. I know you split that lady's head open, and she was 75 years old, and you didn't really mean to do it, but I'm going to get you out of here, and I don't want you to do it again.
I'd be very, again, I'll have to look at Alvin Bragg's record. I'm going to be very surprised if someone who assaulted an elderly woman, was found guilty of assaulting an elderly woman, was given a lenient sentence.
You know, because we have these great discussions and different perspectives sometimes, I'm going to even help you with that research.
Okay.
I'm going to help you get some of that.
Okay, good.
Because I'm as curious. You may be even more curious about how many of those. I know there's a 50% of the cases, but we should look at that and see what it really boils down to, and then that helps us both figure out, hey, what the hell can we do?
So we're here with former Bristol County Sheriff Tom Hodgson. We're taking your calls at 508-996-0500. We're also taking your messages on the app chat. One app chatter said to us, curious why no one calls to say you guys are gentlemen when Chris is there. That's pretty funny.
Well, we know Chris is the ultimate gentleman.
Yeah. Oh no,
it's just a presumption. They just presume he's a gentleman. You and me.
They're surprised. Yeah, they hear about Sheriff Tom Hodgson in the papers. They're surprised how much of a gentleman he is when they hear him.
No, I'm saying you too. I'm saying with Chris, they just automatically presume it. With you and me, they're like, I don't know. Are these guys really gentlemen?
Yeah. Well,
no,
Chris constantly has to defend me to his conservative friends when he's off the air, so I do appreciate that. So,
well, I defend you too.
I appreciate that.
When you're right. It's just that I can't do it very often.
508-996-0500 is how you can join us this evening. We'll also take your messages on the WBSM app chat. We're here with former Bristol County Sheriff Tom Hodgson. So, we're waiting. Donald Trump's going to make some remarks at some point. Guess maybe he's building suspense or something. I don't know. So I got a question. Okay. So these charges, I'm gonna level with you here. These charges don't feel like there's a weak foundation for the case. I think if it hinges on the testimony of Michael Cohen. Witnesses can be impeached, and Michael Cohen is a very impeachable witness because he doesn't have a heck of a lot of credibility because he is, as you know, we've said, a known liar, and even if some of the lies have been on behalf of the president, and he also it can also be demonstrated that he has an axe to grind. I think he has a podcast called Mea Culpa, in which he's basically airing grievances he has about President Trump. So let's say these 34 counts aren't as substantial, don't result in much, if anything at all. There are some other investigations going on. There is the phone call to the Secretary of State in Georgia, where he seemingly asks the Secretary of State in Georgia for a certain amount of votes to pull him ahead in that race when he was down to President Biden. And there's also the classified documents investigation, the documents at Mar-a-Lago. Wondering what your thoughts are on that. I know Chris seems to think there's a bit more there. There's a bit more there in terms of, I think evidence of wrongdoing or even seriousness of wrongdoing.
Well, as far as the situation in Georgia goes, it's hard for, I think, any of us to be able to make any kind of a judgment about what happened until the facts come out. But I do think, depending on, as you well know, intent and how you say something can be interpreted by different people in different ways. And how he asked about the votes and what he believed was fraud going on there, how that was really posed, and how it was taken by the person, I think obviously is going to be something that people are going to look at very closely and say, what really was his intention? Was he really trying to tell him go steal votes? Yeah. I have a hard time believing. Just like remember the woman that said, who was it? Said that the president assaulted the Secret Service agent in the limousine. Do you remember that? He came over the back seat and assaulted one of them. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I do remember that, yeah.
Complete outrage. No, I mean, I've met the president a number of times. He is not somebody that would have done that. I don't believe for 1 second he called and told this guy, go find me these votes no matter what. It's a little ambiguous. Yeah. But it can be interpreted that way for sure. It could be, but we're going to have to, we can't know. We can speculate, but I'm betting in the end that it will be, knowing this man as I know him, that he would never have done that. to say, go find me, go steal, get whatever you need to do to get me over the finish line. That's not him. He's a competitor, but not in that way.
He seems intent on trying to stop the election from moving forward after the results were, more or less finalized. I mean, look at January 6th.
Well,
I'd say he's directly responsible for what happened there.
Well, I wouldn't. And I heard his speeches, and I heard what he said. But you've probably seen some of the clips already, perhaps, of, remember the police officer they said that was killed by somebody hit him with a fire extinguisher? Mm-hmm. That never happened.
Right.
And not only that, but the guy, they have film of that officer about 10 or 15 minutes later walking around after he supposedly was killed. They have him right on film. The guy worked for the FBI. Who was getting people riled up. He was an instigator down there getting people riled up. And what about, you must have seen this. The QAnon guy with the horns?
The shaman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see the Capitol Hill officers walking him around office to office? They were escorting him around, walking down halls. They were showing him this office, showing him that office. It's all on tape. And they made that guy, they just released him after the tapes came out, but the guy's been in jail for how many months? And they said he was inciting it. He was inciting it. Why would you have Capitol Hill police escorting him, walking him down? They're looking, they're talking, looking in offices. They're showing him one. They turn around, come back down another hall. They were Capitol Hill officers. To save these people, just take that one instance. This is where it's all completely.
So you don't think January 6th was like a big deal?
January 6th, I didn't say that. The people that went and destroyed that Capitol or did anything, committed any crimes there, mm-hmm. They need to be prosecuted. They were wrong for doing that. But Capitol Hill police were walking them in, walking them around. The ones that weren't doing that. But we don't want to skip over this the second point that you were asking about. You talked about Georgia, but you also talked about Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, the classified documents.
First of all, again, this raises a serious question. I think that just is a repetitive thing that's going on with the American people right now about scratching their heads saying, what the hell is going on? You got Joe Biden with classified documents in 5 different locations, some of them sitting in his unlocked garage behind his Corvette. And this guy had him, they're learning more and more. I mean, they're finding out about the Chinese connections and all this stuff. This stuff is so incredible. I mean, you want to put some neon lights on something. Let's put them on Joe Biden. Just Joe Biden. Forget Hunter. Just Joe Biden for his 30 years. I mean, when he was vice president, he had documents. He didn't have any authority to take any documents as vice president. That didn't follow the Presidential Act.
Right.
But so why aren't all these news agencies and everybody else saying what the hell is going on here?
Well, I think that's been covered. You know, his
did they go to his Delaware home and go through his wife's clothing and through her closet, look for everything?
I don't know if they did go to his home, didn't they? I think they did. They went to his home. They went to his office. His lawyers that they prepared everything ahead of time. And this is to me, Marcus. Look, well, the perks of complying with authorities when they ask you to, I guess.
Well,
I mean, Trump didn't. Isn't that the difference there?
Well, that remains to be seen. There's questions about that because his lawyers were having conversations. The allegation right now is that he said he gave all the documents back, but some of them were still there. There can be the question of, because presidents are allowed to take classified documents, and there may be a different point of view. They did tell him, they put a second lock on there. They told him put a second lock on. Then they complied with a lot of things. But my point is, when you look at the breadth of the two, you got all the documents in Mar-a-Lago. You got Joe Biden with documents scattered over in 5 different locations, his home in Delaware, out in his garage. I mean, and yet that's not a priority. That's not, what are we doing here? Why aren't we looking at this? Why aren't we holding this guy accountable? Why aren't we asking him, why did you have those documents there? How many of those did belong to the government? Why didn't you tell us you had them in all these locations? But the more they found, like they found the garage, then all of a sudden, there's another location. Oh, no, now there's another location. So if either his attorneys were basically saying, this guy is so scattered-brained, he doesn't know where the hell anything is, which is even more serious because anybody could be accessing those things. Or they were intentionally doing something that was tied into people outside this country, i.e. China, right? And that's a whole nother, look, you can't tell me what's going on with us in China is not impacted by this man being compromised in Washington. He is absolutely compromised.
Well, that's sort of a whataboutism. Do you think that it's wrong? And do you think, let's say Biden's going to be, investigated and potentially prosecuted as well. Do you think that Trump did something wrong in this situation?
I don't know until we find out the facts. But when we know the facts and they say, yes, this is a direct violation, and they show this is a violation of the law, then I think you can't go, well, no, it's not. If the facts are there and the law is what it is, and anyone, Biden or the rest of them, violated it, then everybody would be treated the same way. That's all I'm saying.
We got to take a break. We'll be right back. We got some app chat messages we'll get to, and we'll take your calls at 508-996-0500. Welcome back to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus, and we're here with former Bristol County Sheriff Tom Hodgson. We're reacting to Trump's speech right now. Initially, Sheriff, what's your reaction to the speech?
Well, so far what we've been able to listen to, it's exactly what I thought he would do, which is to lay out exactly the disparity in how he's being treated, as well as what's happening to the American people based on.
I saw that he said that there wasn't enough coverage or I guess probing into the Hunter Biden laptop situation. Congress has got Republicans have the investigative arm of Congress now to, I guess, call upon if they want to pursue that and try to dig out what they can. But he said it'd be a 17-point difference based on a pollster in the election. I find that hard to believe. That's quite it's quite a gap. And I don't know where that comes from. Do you feel like this is a lot of rehashing the 2020 election? I think what he's rehashing is exactly what's taken place, and what transpired. There were so many questions during that election with regards to, ballot boxes being delivered at weird hours of the night. There were, places where people were being told they had to leave and then they would come back the next day and count the ballots. And they're just, whether nothing happened or not, clearly there was reason for everybody to wonder what the heck's going on. This is not a normal process. If we get back to, why can't we in the United States of America have voter ID and have one day where everybody be responsible as Americans to go to the polls and vote? If you don't want to, that's one thing. But why would either party say we're going to broaden it out? Let people do mailing. We know there's all kinds of problems with mailing vote. We have ballots in our county. Same problem. But some people are getting 5 and 6 ballots, right, at their house. There's no reason. We're smart people. We can, in Portugal, in other countries too, but in Portugal, I know for a fact that you have your driver's license, but you also have to have a separate, like a driver's license, but a voter card. I wonder how accessible that voter card is, because I think in a lot of states with voter ID, they try to make those, I think, IDs accessible to people that inaccessible to people that may be voting Democrat. Like in Texas, your college, a form of ID could be your gun license, but it can't be, like, let's say, your college ID. Things like that. So in Alabama, they moved. I remember they moved an RMV out of a prominent black. They moved an RMV. Out of prominent black neighborhoods in major cities, so people couldn't get those IDs as well. So I mean, voter ID. If you were to tell me everybody has to have some sort of proof of residency, and it could be a multitude of things, or there could be a very, very accessible ID, I suppose I'd be more open to it. But I don't know. Has there been demonstrative proof of widespread voter fraud? I haven't seen it.
Oh, sure. All over the country. And look, you have people we had a situation in New Bedford where we had a woman walk into the polling place, take a whole bunch of blank ballots. She was working, went upstairs in the senior thing and came down a half hour later and turned ballots in. Mm-hmm. Okay. Look, we all have responsibilities to go to the polls. If you don't want to, that's your right not to vote. But why would we be making it so accessible and so easy for voter fraud when at a time where we want to make sure that things are done honestly, particularly when we're going to be asking people to represent us, and it's going to represent what true democracy is about, which is the voters vote matters. And if you have it so that it's skewed so that the legitimate voters are going to be sort of negated by these sort of extended policies to allow people to have more time to find ways to play the system. It's simple. We're smart people. And if what you say is true, and that did happen in any community where they moved something out with the motivation of not allowing a certain group to vote, that's dead wrong. So, but don't tell me that Congress, if on both sides of the aisle, if they were spent less time fighting over their politics and sat down and said, look, we're going to have a national voting law. We're going to have a national ID. We're going to sit down and we're going to get into the detail of how everybody can access an ID and make sure that this is the day you vote. These are the times, and that's it.
Well, why one day? What's wrong with early voting?
You could have 2 days. You could move it to weekends instead of having it during the week. But just make a decision. Yeah, it would be better. Yeah. Make a decision of what it's going to be. Is it going to be a Saturday and Sunday the first weekend in November? Fine. Then that's what it's going to be, and we're not going to have any other deviations. You can have your absentee ballots, which you have to have for people in nursing homes and things. But other than that, everybody, you want to vote. You want to have a say in this country as to who's going to, give you a good economy, give you a safe community and all of that. You have a right to have that, and you will get it, and we'll guarantee that by having strict rules like other countries do. They don't say, oh, you're being prejudiced against certain groups here in Portugal. They have a process. We can do that. We're smart people. Well, in my opinion.
I'm curious, and we got some app chat messages we'll get to after I take a break. But before we take a break, I got this. I have a question.
It's not a trick question.
You're going to be likely voting in the Republican primary for president here in Massachusetts, and because I don't think you'll be voting for Joe Biden. So what?
If you were a betting man, I tell you to put everything down on that one.
Well, does this sort of episode and what we've been able to hear of Trump's speech, are you confident in his ability to mount a successful bid for president to reclaim office, or are you looking in another direction, maybe at Chris Sununu or Ron DeSantis?
No, I'm actually right now, unless somebody else emerged that could have the stamina, have the energy, and be openly honest with the American people the way he did, and drill into these issues and include the people at the grassroots level, which is how President Trump worked. He would bring in, if it was a law enforcement issue, he had us down, the sheriffs at the table talking to us, tell me what we need to do about this, do about that. He wouldn't bring in these politicians, these senators and congressmen, say, tell me what you need. He wanted to know from us, if it was a medical issue, to bring in doctors from communities, because we have our boots on the ground. And he wanted to know, so when he created policy, he was going to go back and directly, in a maximum way, benefit the people that we all represented, including him. And so that's the kind of president I want. If he were a Democrat and he were doing that, I would be, and there wasn't anybody else could, I would support him for that. Because the point is, parties are about philosophy. End game and end results and delivering for us ought to be what matters to us ultimately in the end. And yes, do I believe? Look, you can just compare his record to Biden's record. Compare the economy, where we were. Compare oil prices. Compare our standing in the world. China's walking all over us. I mean, they got satellites flying over our place, and President Trump told Putin, and he told these other people, don't even bother trying it, right? Don't even bother trying, because here's what I'm going to do. And they listened, and they knew he meant business. Biden, have him look what's going on with China. I'm not picking on Biden. I'm just telling you, it's a different philosophy.
So if the primary were held tomorrow, you're voting for former President Trump?
I am.
We got former Bristol County Sheriff Tom Hodgson here, and we're taking your calls. We're taking your app chat messages. I kept on saying I'm going to read these app chat messages. We're going to take a break.
1420 WBSM is now also on 99.5 FM.
Meals from those years are hard to forget. It was all white bread and whole milk, hamburger casseroles and quiche Lorraines, all with a side of cigarettes. We ate salads as desserts. We knew a party was classy if it had a cheese log, and we never missed an after-dinner smoke. It didn't matter if we were in our dining rooms, a burger joint, or the ritziest of restaurants. There'd be an ashtray on every table, and that very particular flavor in every meal. We smoked for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's amazing that our food could taste like anything else. If that was you then, get your lungs screened now. Surviving lung cancer starts with a scan. Learn more at screenyourlungs.org. This PSA was made possible by industry funding and guidance from lung cancer patient groups.
Transitioning out of the military, it's difficult. Just about everything around you changes. I would get phone calls that brothers were dying, some of them to suicide. And I'd found myself in another cold cemetery. And I started to wonder if I was next. It's a struggle to know that you're facing challenges, but not be ready to face them. Sleep doesn't come easy. And when it comes, it doesn't last long. You're tired all the time. I didn't reach out for that help, but thank God my wife did. She got me registered for Wounded Warrior Project. Talking to somebody that would listen to me and understood my story helped me realize that it was time to change. There's a new fight. There's a new mission, and that's something I am eternally grateful for.
See how we help warriors combat stigma at woundedwarriorproject.org/combat stigma.
Pollution from trucks is a public health crisis. Diesel-burning trucks belch dangerous levels of pollution, and communities living near ports and along freight corridors breathe especially high levels of this dirty air. But this crisis has a solution. My name is Sasan Sadat, and I work for Earth Justice. I'm working to clean up our air quality, particularly for communities that bear the burden of diesel pollution. For the sake of our lungs, our health, and our climate, the future of trucking in this country has got to be zero emissions. Until then, I will never rest.
Earth Justice is a national legal nonprofit defending the environment and people's health. Earth Justice is fighting to save lives, protect our climate, and strengthen our economy through the shift to zero emissions. If clean air matters to you, visit us at earthjustice.org. Earth Justice, because the earth needs a good lawyer.
Get breaking news alerts, stream audio, send us text messages, and get live traffic and weather updates all on the WBSM app. Download it now from your app store or at WBSM.com.
So we're here with former Bristol County Sheriff Tom Hodgson. Oh, we had a call on the line. I guess it fell off. But you can call if you want at 508-996-0500. That's how you can join us this evening. One thing I did want to ask you about, Tom, is that the former president is accusing these two DAs, one in Georgia, one in Mr. Bragg in Manhattan, who are both African American, of being racist and prosecuting him because he is white. Do you believe that's the case? Do you believe that these DAs think he's are racist and going after him because he's white?
I don't. I mean, I can't say.
You're not a mind reader,
I don't have that feeling myself.
That
would have been the motivation. I more think that this is driven by politics, as opposed to race, and why the president feels that way. I don't know. I never ever had that impression in my mind based on the things that I've heard or seen so far.
508-996-0500, and we'll also take your app chat messages. So we got an app chat message from Billy in New Bedford. We were, following up on a conversation about immigration. There was a story. I don't know if you've been able to read it. It's both, Ben Burke, Providence's NPR, and Will Senna at the New Bedford Light both reported on this and did a great job. But there is Eastern Fisheries laid off 110 workers. Some can't reapply because they are undocumented workers. This app chatter is wondering, how does Hodgson feel about temp agencies in New Bedford? Who wins and who loses with them? Who's on the line for employing documented workers, the business or the undocumented workers?
I'm not sure I understand the last part of the question.
I think who do you think should, if an undocumented worker is hired, do you think that they're entitled to fundamental, workers' rights, and who's ultimately responsible if a temp agency, hires undocumented workers? Who do you think should be held responsible in that situation? A temp agency bringing undocumented workers to a place.
I personally think that's kind of a complex question, but a simple answer. I've been dealing with this issue for 25 years. I was dealing with Barney Frank and Henry Hyde on a bipartisan bill that made it through the House, never made it to the Senate, because I was told by John Kerry's chief of staff at the time, when I went and said, listen, this needs to get through the Senate. They said, that'll never happen. I said, why? And they said, it'll never see the light of day. I said, why not? It just passed the House. And this was the beginnings of immigration reform, to get more people here legally, right?
Yeah.
To maybe give temp agencies a legitimate way to get workers. And the answer was because it's an election year.
Right.
And it never changed. So my point is, first, let's start with that. The fact that Congress has failed to address the immigration law and make the reforms. If we need more workers, we did it World War I, World War II. When we needed less workers, they cut it back. When we needed more workers, they raised it. So my point is, what we've done is, and this is the part that really frosts me about the Biden administration with this whole border issue and just letting people pour over our borders. On one hand, they want to give out, these left-wing groups want to give out these reparations, right, for people whose great-great-grandparents may have been slaves or what have you, and give them $500,000 apiece, right? Because at that time, there was wrongly in our country, we had slaves. How is that any different than what the Biden administration is doing right now? They know these people are being brought into this country. They're being asked to work 105 hours a week. I just saw a report on a guy who was being forced to work 105 hours a week. One time he tried to leave and the guy kicked him in the groin, right? Ended up injuring him pretty bad. And these people are being mistreated. Not by every business. Some businesses are paying them legitimate. But it certainly gives this power to companies that need help, can't find anybody. What you expect them to try to keep their businesses going. But it also is a temptation for some companies to say, I have you over a barrel, you're illegal, and I'll use that against you. We don't have to have that situation. If Congress will do its job and add the number of people we need to have in this country and do it the right way. Otherwise, we're basically back to, we'll pick and choose, Congress will, who has to follow the law and who doesn't, and we're just going to let these people pour in. If these people were pouring in by these numbers over Mayorkas's fence into his yard, he wouldn't be going, oh, there's no problem here. Pay no attention to this.
We got to take a break. We'll be right back. We see some calls online. We're going to get to them after the break. Welcome back. Let's go to the phones. Good evening. Hello. All right. Call back in the 9 o'clock hour. Sorry. We're nearing the end. President Trump wrapped up his speech. We're reacting to it. We're taking your calls. We're taking your app chat messages here. There's a big historic event going on, but Tom, you're a resident of Dartmouth. There was a Dartmouth town election today, and there's a very tight race for school committee, it seems, right now. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's and we were talking about this earlier off the air, but the idea that school committee is really attracting a lot of voters, as you mentioned,
more so than the select board races.
Yeah. And I wonder if it doesn't have something to do with all the things that have happened in the schools, and parents are finally, starting to realize that, wait a minute, we need more control in the schools. We need people in there that are going to represent what we want done. And I don't know. Did you hear about the guy up in the superintendent up on, I think it was East Hampton?
No.
So he was vying for superintendent. He was awarded the job. he wrote a letter because there was a cap on the salary. He wrote a letter thanking the mayor and the board for appointing him superintendent. And he said, what I'm hoping you can do is maybe we can get some additional days off or whatever to offset since it's a lower thing. And they said, but he addressed it, dear ladies.
Oh.
Well, when he did that, there were two women on the board. They immediately flipped out because he referred to them as ladies, and they withdrew his appointment. So my question is, when I give up,
did he address the letter "Dear Ladies"?
Dear ladies.
It's kind of a weird way to address somebody, but it's not in a formal letter. But it's not fire. I don't think it's fireable.
Well, when I get up and give a speech, ladies and gentlemen, is that now inappropriate?